Emily, Emily, Emily. There's nobody quite like her. Emily is an emerald green tender engine who lives on the island of Sodor. She predominantly works on the main line, hauling passengers and coaches and mixed goods trains, but has also been known to work on the branch lines too. Emily is a compassionate character, and she will always put others' well-being above herself, going as far to risk her own life to save others on at least 2 occasions, gaining her a special rake of coaches and a number 12 as well. She's a very clever engine and is very good at spotting mistakes. However, this can annoy others when her advice is not wanted. She may come off as bossy at times, but her bossiness always stems from a place of love and concern for her friends. Emily is a very interesting character to dissect. She might very well be one of the most misunderstood Thomas characters in the franchise, by fans and the show alike. Everything about the atmosphere around this character is divisive and polarizing, from her basis, to her placement in the show, to her characterization, to even her motherfucking number. Everything about this character is polarizing to fans. But why is that? What is it about this seemingly innocuous character that splits Thomas fans up so much? Well, let's find out. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, there's nobody quite like her, there's nobody quite like Emily. The inspiration for Emily is actually quite unique. At Shepperton Studios, during the production of Series 6, one of the crew members had built a single Stirling engine in his own time. The crew liked the model, commenting that its cylinder casing looked just like girls' hair, going as far to say the model would make a perfect basis for a female character. And eventually, that's exactly what happened. For the production of Series 7, concept art was drawn of Emily, and it's believed that this very photo was taken as reference for the model makers. Now, as to how Emily works in canon is a whole other kettle of fish that I'm not going to get into, as Emily's basis is something that Thomas fans love to debate. But regardless of how you feel about her basis, you can't deny about how unique and aesthetically pleasing Emily is. Emily has quite a unique basis because it's one of the few Victorian-era steam engines in the show. That huge single driving wheel really helps her stand out, and it's a shame that more 18th century locos weren't seen in the show, because goddamn, those locos look so aesthetically pleasing. Emily was the first character introduced in Series 7 in the episode entitled Emily's New Coaches. I think it's pretty fitting that Emily's first episode is all about how misunderstood she is as a character, because ironically, her being misunderstood would become a staple of her character. Emily has a very solid first episode in my opinion. You really have to empathize with Emily's character. Making such easy mistakes on your first day is very relatable. But I think what really makes Emily's character shine in this episode is when she saves Thomas. Like, Emily could have very easily let karma take care of itself and have Thomas crash. I mean, it would have served him right. But no, she goes out of her way and saves Thomas and is awarded 2 new coaches. Actions speak louder than words, and in Emily's case, that is definitely true. In Emily's next appearance, What's the Matter with Henry, we get to learn more about Emily's empathetic side. Henry the big green engine is sick and all the other engines are making fun of him. This is nothing new we've seen before, but what makes this so unique is the way that Emily reacts, because unlike Thomas and Percy, Emily actually cares about Henry's well-being. In fact, she's one of the first characters in the whole show who shows genuine compassion for Henry, which is really refreshing to see. Emily is exactly what Henry needs. Henry is one of the most tragic characters in the franchise. He is consistently dumped on by the world and by other characters who tease him. But Emily isn't like that. She can see that Henry is truly suffering and is one of the few characters in the series who genuinely shows compassion for him. Emily gives him the mercy that he's been denied. I love that. Most Thomas characters are very self-centered and really only care about their own selfish interests, whereas Emily flies in the face of all that, in that she's one of the few Thomas characters who almost always instinctively puts others above herself. Emily didn't have to go out of her way to talk to the Fat Controller. She didn't have to go out of her way to save Henry. But she did, because it was just instinct for her. in the same way it was just instinct for her to save Oliver and Thomas. A lot of people have different interpretations of what role Emily has in the show. Some see her as the bigger sister character, some see her as the aunt. But just based on the way she acts in the show, I see her more as the mother. Emily just has this undying motherly instinct about her. The type of instinct that would make you want to do anything for your child. She will literally die just to save other characters. And I think that's why Emily has such an important role in the show, because there are already plenty of father characters like the Fat Controller or Gordon, but there isn't really any maternal figures in the show at all. That's why Emily's so important. That's why she's one of the first characters who shows genuine compassion to Henry. It's so sweet. We even see this again in Emily's next appearance. Thomas and Percy are making fun of Salty, and Emily straight away tells them off like a mother.
It's no nice to copy the way others speak. You hurt Salty's feelings.
This is why Emily's so important. She's consistently concerned about other characters and their situations, be it Salty being teased.
What's wrong?
Or Henry being sick.
Are you alright, Henry?
Or Oliver being in danger. Emily might be one of the most selfless characters in the whole classic series. She has this endless love and concern for her children, and when her children are bold, she scolds them like any mother would. It's very rare that you'd actually see Emily be concerned about herself. I mean, the only time we see her do that is in her first appearance. She is very good at sensing what other characters feel. Like when other characters are cross at her, she feels that. When other characters are upset, she feels it. Or when other characters are sick, she really feels the pain of that character and makes it her duty to help them. Nothing upsets Emily more than seeing a character in pain, but nothing makes Emily more happy than seeing a character content. And I think that's why Emily is a good character, because she always strives to make the world a better place, one character at a time. She is truly one of the most empathetic, selfless and thoughtful characters in the whole show, and she is more than deserving of her special coaches. Now, let's see how they handled her in the hit era. To understand Emily in the hit era, we first have to understand what Hit Entertainment's plans were with Thomas. Hit basically wanted to streamline the main cast by establishing 8 core characters, and according to Sam Barlow, they had considered using Duck as part of the STEAM team, but dropped him in favour of Emily, as to give more of a gender balance to the STEAM team. Now this is where I think a lot of Emily's hatred comes from, because Emily wasn't a main character. She was of the same status as characters like Arthur or Murdoch or Harvey, you know, one of those series 6 or 7 newbies, not a main character. But at the same time, I do understand Hit wanting to have a bit of female representation in their core group of characters. But what was a real bizarre change with Emily was that they gave her quite the character shift. According to Paul Larson in a Sodor Island fansite article, the writers for Series 8 were inspired by the character of Lucy from Peanuts. For those who are unaware, Peanuts was a comic book strip and later a cartoon starring Charlie Brown, Lucy and other characters. Lucy was a very mean, antagonistic girl character who basically made Charlie Brown's life hell. She wasn't shy of showing her opinions or letting other characters know exactly what was on her mind.
It's men like you that make the world a rough place to live for beautiful girls like me.
And according to Paul Larson, this was the inspiration for Emily. Why they thought of making Emily the motherly character into Lucy from Peanuts, I have no idea.
Pretty faces make me nervous.
How come my face doesn't make you nervous? I notice you can talk to me. I have a pretty face. How come you can talk to me? Wasn't I the Christmas queen? You haven't answered,
I guess they changed her because they didn't want Emily to turn into this generic girl character, and they also wanted her to be able to carry more stories by herself. Emily's first appearance with this new character was in the Series 8 episode Thomas, Emily and the Snowplow, and right off the bat, you can see how this new personality adds so much flair to their dynamic. Unlike before, Emily and Thomas are really at each other's throats.
You should say sorry for bossing me about. I am sorry, said Emily. Sorry you didn't listen to me.
Despite Emily being bossy though, Emily's heart is still in the right place, and I think that's what really saves her character. Yeah, she was still telling Thomas what to do, but she's still always looking out for him. In a way, she's still sort of in line with her Series 7 counterpart, it's just her approach is different. Like she's still a mother, just a very angry mother. The next lead role for Emily was in Emily's New Route. Now I don't know about you, but when I think of Emily as a character, this is always one of the first episodes that comes to mind. Everything about this episode is what I associate with Emily as a character. Her anger, her fear, her coaches, Black Luck, the castle. I love this episode so much because it just feels so Emily to me, if that makes sense. You'll notice that it's Emily's first solo episode. All of other Emily episodes up to this point have been Emily with Thomas, or Emily with Henry, or Emily with Salty, Emily with Thomas again. But this is the first episode where we get to see Emily all by herself. There's no one really for her to bounce off on, it's just Emily alone. And I think that's what kind of adds to the loneliness of this episode. Those lonely shots of Emily at Black Luck have always stuck with me from childhood. We get to see less of Emily's bossy side and more of her vulnerable side. She is so scared of this monster at Black Luck that it causes her to screw up her jobs, which in turn gets her sent to Black Luck. She's so scared of the monster, but once she finally confronts it, she realizes that it wasn't as scary as she thought it was. And by the end of the episode, Emily looks out at the sunset with the satisfaction of conquering her fears. It's such a wonderful personal story. That idea of battling with your inner demons or monsters and realizing that they aren't as scary as you thought they were. I like how it adds to Emily's lore as well, giving her a branch line and something to do. I love when the show does things like this. It gives Emily a place to be. For Emily's first solo episode, I think they did a pretty good job. It's a shame the same can't be said for her next appearance. I'm going to be frank, I've never been fond of As Good as Gordon. This and Emily's Adventure are tied for some of my least favourite episodes of Emily. Okay, it's not as bad as Emily's Adventure, there are some things I appreciate about it. It's a kind of novel idea, giving Emily Gordon's job for an episode, and I guess it's cool to see that they were inspired by the real-life Sterling single cast, since they were Express Engines IRL. But the main reason I don't like this episode, and haven't liked it since childhood, is that Emily is just unbearable in it. I tend to give Emily a pass in most of her episodes because she's either really entertaining or really funny or vulnerable, but here, she's just so rude. Like, I get that she's pulling the express, but come on. It's just not fun to see her belittle Edward or leave Bertie at the station. Speaking of which, did they ever address that in the episode? She's bad in this one, but oh my god, she's like 10 times worse in Emily's Adventure. At least with As Good as Gordon, you have the gimmick of her pulling the express, but in this one, it's literally just Emily harassing everyone she meets. I just hate seeing Emily be so unjustifiably rude to Trevor and Elizabeth. At least with Thomas, it made sense that she was rude because Thomas was being an idiot, or the way the trucks were behaving caused her to be rude. In those circumstances, her rudeness was justified, but here, she's just being rude for no reason.
Hurry up! You must work harder.
But thankfully, we go from one of Emily's worst episodes to one of her best. In Halloween, Thomas and Emily are sent to the scrapyard, but they're both so confident about it.
Imagine being scared of Halloween, puffed Thomas. Or the smelter's yard, sniffed Emily. Pah, added Thomas.
This is why Emily and Thomas make such a good dynamic. They're both kind of enablers in their own self-confidence, only for them to be scared out of their wits. A tarp falls onto Emily and we get the best sequence in the entire hit era. I don't know, there's something kind of special about Ghost Emily, it just works really well. You want to hear something crazy though? All of the hit era episodes I just listed were from one season. Yes, they gave Emily like 5 lead roles in just Series 8 alone. She got more lead roles in Series 8 than she did in any other season. But what's crazy about it is that she doesn't even stop there. In Calling All Engines, they give Emily like her own subplot. So Tidmouth Sheds is destroyed and Thomas has to go sleep at Knapford Sheds, and at first Emily is pissed off that she has to share her shed with Thomas, But then one night Thomas doesn't return home, and at first Emily's like okay with it, but then she starts to feel lonely without him. Then when the sheds are rebuilt, Emily is sad that she'll be alone again, but it's then revealed that they built an extra berth for Emily, and just like that, Emily is officially integrated into the main cast at Tidmouth Sheds. Keep in mind, Emily went from a second-rate Series 7 newbie character to a goddamn main character. There is no other character in the whole show who had a journey quite like Emily. It doesn't come out of the blue at all and feels very natural, unlike some other characters I could mention. It also helps that this happened in a special and not in a random ass episode at the end of the season. It's just set up, built up upon, and paid off all really well. A really solid way to get Emily into the main cast. Although after Emily joined the shed, her role was drastically reduced. She only got like one spotlight a season, and while that is kinda sad, all of Emily's spotlight episodes in the latter model seasons were absolute bangers, with the exception of Rosie's Funfair special. In Series 9 we got Emily Knows Best, and I don't know if I've ever said this before, but I really like Emily Knows Best. Like, I would unironically rank it in my top 10. I love the term Queen Emily because it's so true. Emily is such a queen, a female ruler who's in charge and tells everyone what to do.
Queens are in charge and tell everybody what to do. I'd like to be a queen, thought Emily.
I love the association with Emily in castles too. I love seeing the clash between Toby and Emily. I love this take on Emily as well.
I am queen today, I will tell you what to do. Percy was worried.
I love this take on Emily as well, that sometimes she doesn't know everything, and for once she actually learns to ask others for help rather than just thinking she can do it all by herself. And the way she expresses such genuine sympathy for the other engines, it's great. Also in Series 9, Emily made fun of Molly off screen, which, you know, would have been cool to see on screen, but oh well. In Series 10, Emily's spotlight episode was Emily and the Special Coaches. Now this is a really interesting one. We get our only Diesel and Emily episode. Emily and Diesel are really fiery characters. They don't hold anything back.
Gordon's not the only one who's special, Diesel oiled proudly. Well, there's nothing special about smelly old diesels.
So Diesel steals Gordon's new coaches, and Emily, being a total badass, literally chases down after Diesel. It's so good, but what really elevates this episode is the twist. The reason Diesel took the coaches was because no one was appreciating him, and so he was basically acting out. And despite stealing the coaches, Emily still brings Diesel a new motor. It's actually kind of sweet. It's quite interesting actually. It's very reminiscent of Emily's caring motherly side. In Series 11, Emily got paired up with Whiff in Emily's Rubbish. No, not Emily's Rubbish, but literally the episode's called Emily's Rubbish. It was very whatever episode, although I do like the scene where Molly laughed at Emily.
When they saw Whiff, they all laughed too.
I guess Molly got the last laugh out of both of them. And finally, in Series 12, Emily got her last spotlight episode of the model series. While there wasn't really much to write home about, it was cool to see Emily interact with Harvey and Murdoch, and considering they both came from the same season, it was cool to see Emily interact with them. It was also cool to see her interact with Duck as well, considering she replaced Duck.
Some of the tracks ahead are very muddy. If you get stuck in the mud, it's going to take you even longer. I'm excellent, Emily. And I know which tracks to choose.
Just kind of annoying that she was only given this now. Like, it would have been so cool to see Emily have this episode with other Series 6 and 7 newbies, but, you know, one can dream. I think overall, Hit Era Emily was very entertaining. I didn't realise until making this how many good episodes she actually had in that era. Even though Emily was inconsistent with her old classic self, she was always very consistent within the Hit Era itself. And I think they did a really good job at developing stories for her. People often throw around the word strong female characters, but in Emily's case, she is actually a great and refreshing portrayal of a female character in media. But despite being a strong female character, Emily's still flawed, and I think that's what gives her relatability. She's definitely a unique character, and I would choose her any day over Lucy from Peanuts. She is a way more interesting character than her. Now, Let's see what CGI has to offer. Contrary to popular belief, in the early years of the CGI series, Emily did actually retain some of her hit-era characteristics. For example, in the first all-CGI movie, Hero of the Rails, when Spencer is interrogating Emily, she's pretty much Emily from the hit era. I love how Spencer keeps bothering her and she just doesn't even care. Like, she just continues to work. It's brilliant.
You're a big, strong engine, Spencer. Why don't you go and look?
But besides this and a few other scenes, Emily's strong, angry, bossy characteristics from the hit era pretty much faded away. She became less bossy and more knowing. They really pushed the "she really knows her stuff" angle of her character. Like when she knows all the types of flowers.
Those yellow flowers are called buttercups.
Or how she knows everything about Sodor United.
I know all about the Sodor United team.
Or when she doesn't know, like not knowing how to whistle warble.
Your face is very strange.
There's not really much to say about Emily between series 13 and 16. She's just kind of a generic character now. Other than knowing her stuff, there's not really that much to her anymore. When Andrew Brenner and Ian McHugh joined Thomas, they wanted to make Thomas feel more classic, making the characters like their true selves. However, this makes it awkward when deciding what to do with Emily, because Emily started out as a nice motherly character for like 1 season, then she was bossy for like 5 seasons, then she lost her bossiness and became a generic nice. So when it comes to Andrew Brenner and Ian McHugh, what the hell type of character do you give her? I don't think the new crew really knew what to do with Emily. Like, they referenced a bunch of things she did in the past, like helping Henry to go to the works, or taking Annie and Clarabelle from Thomas, or telling Thomas to go get his snowplow, but I don't think they really knew what to do with her. Her spotlight episode in series 17, No Snow for Thomas, is literally a repeat of Thomas, Emily and the snowplow. Emily tells Thomas he should wear his snowplow. Thomas doesn't listen. Thomas goes out with his snowplow anyway, only to get stuck in the snow. But don't worry, it's Emily to the rescue, and Thomas learns never to go out with his snowplow ever again. Oh wait, I think comparing these stories is actually a pretty good case study in showing how different Emily's character has changed. Like in Thomas, Emily and the snowplow, it's Emily who's the one who's pissed off at Thomas for going out without a snowplow, while in No Snow for Thomas, Emily's just sort of generically nice, while the Fat Controller is the one who's cross. Wow, it's almost like you could literally replace her character with literally anyone else and the story wouldn't have changed. Emily's next main appearance in the Brenner era was in Flatbeds of Fear, and I actually think they did a good job with her here. No one ever really talks about it, but it's probably because the episode's so bad, but I actually think Emily's quite good in this one. They really pushed the know-it-all aspect of her character. She talks about not believing in ghosts and having a sensible explanation for things. It's almost like Emily had an actual character for once. Emily keeps looking for a sensible explanation, but she can't find one, and I actually think it's quite good at showing how even a sensible character can still find themselves scared. That fear of not knowing, that's actually quite a clever fear for Emily to have. Emily's next appearance was in yet another controversial episode. What can I say? The poor girl can't avoid controversy. In this episode, Emily is sad that she hasn't pulled specials like the other engine, and this actually becomes a big part of Emily's character in the CGI series. She's always wanting to pull specials and consistently compares herself to other characters. It seems like Emily has some serious self-worth issues in the CGI series. Like, the first thing she does when she finally gets a special is she tries to show it off to everyone. I think the writers were being pretty meta with Emily here, saying about how she hasn't really done anything, like how the closest thing she's had to a special was dirty laundry. To be honest, I don't really get why people hate Emily Saves the World so much. It's honestly such a guilty pleasure episode of mine. I love that they gave Emily such an insane episode. The goal of the episode is to be exciting and funny, and it's so cool that they chose Emily to be the centerpiece of it all. Yeah, it's unrealistic, but oh my god, who the hell cares? Seriously lads, Emily Saved the World is the absolute GOAT, and you're either in denial or a purist if you don't think so. Emily's next spotlight was in Best Engine Ever, and can I just say, this is probably one of Emily's best appearances in the whole CGI series. I could go on for ages about about why I like this episode, but I'm just going to keep it brief. Firstly, I love the way they introduce Emily in this one. The opening shot is really clever. We see Caitlin racing Connor and being really cool, and then the first time we see Emily is where she's all broken down. It's so clever. It's a good way of contrasting the characters. I love the parallel of this shot where the first one is of Caitlin helping Emily, and the second one is of Emily helping Caitlin. Very clever. I think it's so interesting the way Emily looks up to Caitlin, because we've never really seen Emily look up to another character before. It's got a great lesson about how the people you look up to can also suffer from problems too. Like when Emily says she'll never be as amazing as Caitlin, but then Caitlin responds with not being able to shunt trucks.
And you get to pull all sorts of trains, whereas I almost always pull passengers.
And how she'd like some variety from time to time. Or when Emily says for Caitlin to shunt her onto the other siding, Emily doesn't even bat an eye that Caitlin can't shunt. And what's even more clever is that they bring it back into the story at the end, when Caitlin says that she wishes she could shunt like Emily.
This is why I don't do pushing. It always messes up my skirt.
It's so clever. It's got a great moral about how people we look up to still have problems of their own, and that it's good to embrace your own characteristics. I also really love the climax. It's always been other characters in Emily episodes who save the day, like in Flatbeds of Fear, when Thomas tells Emily that it was the pipes whistling, or in Emily Saves the World, it's Captain who saves the world, for God's sake. So it's nice to see that Emily finally gets to save the character in her own episode. Finally getting to see Emily do something as badass as saving Caitlin from falling off a cliff. It's so satisfying. However, this would be Emily's last main role for a while. She didn't get any lead roles in Series 20. She did get a semi-role with The Great Race. I love the design they gave her. It makes her look very pretty. And in Series 21, she got 2 lead roles. The first one was in Dowager Hat's Busy Day, where she played the straight man to Dowager Hat's Pure Insanity. And she also appeared in Emily in the Middle, where Emily was, well, in the middle. While I'm okay with both of these episodes, I still felt like there was some missed opportunities with them. It would have been so much more interesting if Dowager Hat's Busy Day had brought back some of Emily's bossiness. Like maybe one day Emily's late with a train or something and the Fat Controller gives out to her. This leaves Emily feeling bitter and she wishes that she could be in charge. But then the very next day, like magic, Dowager Hat turns up as the Fat Controller's sick, and quite quickly Emily learns that maybe it's good that the Fat Controller's in charge of the railway. Same goes for Emily in the Middle. This would have worked so much better if Emily was causing the trouble between Donald and Douglas rather than the other way around. I mean, we already have one episode with Donald and Douglas arguing in the snow. Do we really need 2? Although saying that, it was pretty rad to see Emily, Donald and Douglas get an episode together. I feel it was very inspired, and I love hearing the 3 Scottish accents together. So clever. In Series 22, the Big World Big Adventures changes happened, where Henry and Edward were written off and they brought on 2 new girl characters. For a season that talked about female inclusivity or whatever they're trying to push, Emily, the main female lead of the series up to this point, didn't get a single lead role. Ironic. You know, you'd think the first thing they do when they add 2 new girl characters to the main cast is that they, would have an episode with the other prominent female lead. It's crazy. Rebecca never got an episode of Emily, and Emily and Nia didn't get an episode until like Series 23. Oh yeah, speaking of which, this episode is literally the Bechdel test of the episode.
Now we're going to have a little elocution lesson.
So Emily is sad that she hasn't gone on an adventure like Nia. So the next morning Rebecca suggests Emily takes the Girl Scouts to go camping. So Emily collects the Girl Scouts and brings them up to the castle, but she gets derailed. Then Nia realizes that Emily is in trouble, so she goes looking for them. Thankfully, the Girl Scouts rescue Emily. Both her and Nia head off into the sunset. Yeah, they really didn't know what they were doing with this episode. Like, it just comes off as a bunch of stuff we've seen Emily do before. Oh, Emily's sad that she hasn't gone on an adventure. Haven't seen that before. Oh, Emily takes the children up to Callan Castle. Haven't seen that before. Oh, Emily gets stuck on her way up to the castle. How shocking. Rangers of the Rails is the episode that killed my interest in Emily as a character. It was abundantly clear they didn't know what the hell they were doing with her. I wasn't really expecting much out of her next appearance. I didn't think we were going to get anything special. However, I was completely wrong. I feel like with Series 24, they really wanted to try and make up for the lackluster Emily episodes over the past few years. They did so much with Emily this season, probably more than they did in years. She got 2 lead roles, she got a new job as the official safety engine, and she even gained a number. So much happened with her, so let's dive in. So right away, the first episode of Series 24 is an Emily episode. Cool. I think the majority of fans don't really like this one though, so I guess I'm kind of in the minority when I say that I actually really like it. I thought it was really clever how the opening shot was of a single axle wheel with a curved design. A very clever nod to Emily there. Basically, Emily wishes that she has a best friend, and so she goes around trying to befriend everyone. I really empathize with Emily. It's difficult for me to put into words, but I feel like this episode really gets at the idea that sometimes you feel pressured to have a best friend. And on a personal level, I have gone through this experience lots of times, and perhaps that's why it resonated more with me than others. While I do like this episode and I like the messaging it goes for, I don't think it really works because it's sort of set in the wrong period. This episode concept would have worked much better within the original Steam team. Because at the time, Emily was the newest member of the Steam team, and because she was so new, she didn't have as many established relationships like Gordon and Henry, or Edward and James, or Thomas and Percy. They all had way more established relationships, but Emily didn't. The reason the story doesn't really work is because Nia and Rebecca don't nearly have as many relationships with the main characters as Emily does. What, are you telling me that Rebecca has a stronger relationship with Gordon than Emily does? Are you telling me that James and Nia have a stronger relationship? If anything, Nia has a stronger relationship with Emily. Seriously, just swap Rebecca with Henry and Nia with Edward, and then this episode just works fine. Even though it doesn't really make any sense, I still feel like Emily is in character, her feeling lonely. In Thomas's fuzzy friend, Thomas derails, and it's up to Emily to go and find him. I thought that this was pretty in character for her, but the reason I'm mentioning it is because she goes and collects Rocky, but you'll notice that she doesn't have her number yet. And I just love that sly foreshadowing of Emily working with Rocky. That was really clever. And finally, we get Emily's last lead role in the series. So, there's an inspector on the island and they're basically doing a fire drill, but through a series of convoluted capers, the bridge is collapsing, but Emily jumps in just in time and saves Gordon. Emily is praised by the Fat Controller and is awarded her very own number. Okay, there's a lot to unpack here. I still find it such a crazy coincidence that Emily's very last lead role in the series was the one where she got the number 12. Now, I'll be honest with you, I have always wanted Emily to get the number 12, and when those colouring sheets of Emily were revealed, I was so excited to see how it happened. Although I was a little worried it might not even happen because I thought they might pull a red Rosie with us or something. So I really appreciate that they actually went to the extra effort of giving us an episode with her getting a number. But once I actually seen it animated, it just looked kinda wrong to me. Like, just to see that number on her completely changes how you look at her, and I just don't know how to feel about it, to be honest. I really wanted the change, but as soon as they changed it, I don't know, it just kinda rubbed me the wrong way. It's just such a perfect way to end her character in the show. Even though it wasn't their intention for it to be her last episode, it's just such a lucky coincidence that it happened that way. Throughout the whole CGI series, Emily has consistently had this self-doubt and issues about not being special, not being as good as Caitlin, not getting to have adventures. So it's great that her final episode is all about her getting rewarded, finally getting the recognition that she deserves, and getting the number 12 as well. There's just something about that symbolism of her having a number. Like, it's great. I honestly couldn't think of a better way to send off her character. Her jumping in and saving Gordon in her last episode, just like how she jumped in and saved Oliver in her first episode. Mwah. Just brilliant. No other character in the series had an arc quite like Emily. Her story is truly one of a kind, starting out as a secondary newbie character to becoming a main character, from the empathetic to the bossy to the sad, but still coming out laughing in the end. Nobody in the series has had a story or journey quite like Emily. But which Emily is the best? Well, that's a very difficult question to answer. Emily's a very personal character to a lot of people. With Emily, you either like her or you either don't, you know? I think Mae West put it best.
Well, when I'm good, I'm very good. But when I'm bad, I'm better.
There's something way more dynamic about hit-era Emily that lends herself well to plots. But if it was my personal decision as to which Emily is the best, I'd probably have to pick... Actually, you know what? I'm not going to say. I do know which Emily I prefer, but I think it's redundant of me telling you because Emily is a very personal character and it's really a coin toss between which one you prefer. So please, audience, comment down below which Emily is your favourite. I mean, you should be able to comment, this is a video for adults YouTube, but please comment down below which is your favourite version of Emily and try to give your best compelling arguments. Try to summon your inner bossiness. Okay, but no, for real. No matter which Emily you prefer, you can't deny the legacy of her character. There's no one quite like Emily. Friendly Emerald Emily. You don't need to ask her twice when you want some sound advice. All of those who know Emily knows what a show's especially. She's got that certain you know what. There's no one quite like Emily.